Not long ago, elm trees were abundant in North America. They were a popular option for city landscapers because of their versatility as well as shallow roots. By the 21st century, however, over 80% of elm trees were dead. Why did this happen? The answer is Dutch Elm Disease, or DED. To understand what happened to the elm trees, you need to understand how the vascular system of a tree works. Just like humans, trees transport these nutrients throughout their body through a system of tubes. In the tree, these tubes or tissue is called the xylem. Water is transported or translocated through the roots all the way to the leaves. Dutch elm disease is a type of fungi that was accidentally brought to the States. When an elm tree gets sick, it blocks its own xylem. This blockage isolates the fungus, but it prevents water and oxygen and carbon from reaching a large part of the tree. The tree starves itself and dies. A tree's role in the water system alone is complicated and extremely important. First, the tree's roots collect water through osmosis. This creates a pressure that forces water up the xylem. Then, through a process called transpiration, excess water is released through the leaves along with oxygen and back into the sky. When enough water is released, clouds are formed and it rains, starting the cycle all over again. The local environment needs trees, which is why things like Dutch elm epidemic is so troubling to the surrounding ecosystem. You may be wondering how this fungus spreads from elm to elm. There are several ways it can spread, but by far the largest culprit is European elm bark beetles. These beetles are an invasive species that most likely came to the US around the same time as the disease. An invasive species is one that is not native and is believed to cause great harm to the existing ecosystem. These beetles will nest in already infected elm trees, and when they reach maturity, the young beetles will feed on the xylem, which happens to be where the fungi is. Then the beetle moves to another possibly healthy tree, spreading the virus. The elm bark beetle is just one example of how harmful an invasive species can be. At this point in time, there is no cure for DED. Once the tree has the disease, it will die. The only hope for saving the elm trees is to breed DED-resistant elm trees. At the National Tree Seed Center in Canada this spring, they are injecting young elm trees with the spores of the fungus that causes DED, with the hopes of creating resistant elms. Elm trees' leaves will be alternate and oval-shaped with small jagged teeth, coming out of trunks and branches extending at about halfway up the trunk, giving the tree an umbrella-like shape. Signs of DED could be withering and orange leaves at the top of the tree. Identifying DED is crucial, because once identified, you can remove the infected elm before the fungus spreads. Elm trees are important components of natural forests and urban forests. In fact, we have an elm tree right by our school. It is important to remember that DED can be avoided, and we can all help eradicate it.